right, and welcome to the Line Break Rugby podcast. Today we're going to be talking about USA Rugby, and we have Fred with us. So Fred, do you want to introduce yourself and say hi so everyone knows what your voice sounds like?
Hi.
That's Fred. We have Adam as well.
Hello.
And we have an American with us who's currently situated in Dublin. We have Ian. Can you introduce yourself, Ian?
Hi, I'm Ian.
That's Ian.
Wait.
So we're going to be talking about USA and the rugby and just some questions that you sent us. We did get some questions off Rugby Union. We also got some questions off our sports on Reddit. So we've got plenty to get our teeth into. Sadly, we didn't have time to get the graphics up. In fact, I'm not sure. Oh, we're streaming the homepage. That's why I wanted to stream. That's good. This is being live streamed and also going to be recorded, so it will go up later on in the day. Right. So we're going to start. We're starting off with the national team.
Yeah. Just I guess for the starter for Ian, going deep. So after the going hard, after the World Cup, it was pretty disappointing from a USA perspective, I guess. Where do you go from here?
It wasn't quite English levels of post-World Cup fallout, but I think a lot of people might have seen so Todd Clever, the former captain, was dropped back in the spring. And then after the World Cup, he released this whole list of grievances with Mike Tolkien, the coach. Basically how, Tolkien more or less lied about the reason he dropped them, had been, sending around these sheets of, telling everyone on the team to rate 1 through 26 the best players, which is just absolutely ludicrous. And so, and kind of right now, there's, so they're hiring a new coach. Mike Tolkien's been allowed to reapply. So they haven't.
So they might be letting him back in. So they haven't sacked him,
no.
But they have really.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hope someone better applies, but if they don't, then he can have his job.
I think
right.
To be honest with you, if I was a coach with some decent club level standing at one of the big countries around the world, I'd take on the USA job and I'd try and fix it, because there's a lot of money in America, not necessarily in USA Rugby, but there's a lot of American money lying around for sponsorship deals and things. So I'd take that on the chin and I'd try and follow up and see what I could do with it, because there's plenty of talent to be worked with.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if there's that much money. I mean, they are being sponsored by Heathrow Express, not by American companies.
I know what you're saying, but I think the opportunity for a high-level coach, I don't know who particularly, I don't know who's actually out of a job right now. I don't know who's
just
on the
put
market.
Yourself forward. I mean, I know you want to.
but imagine that you've got a power.
Lovely this time of year.
Who are you expecting to get the job, Ian? That's the question.
I have no idea.
No?
They could end up going with some guy. What's his name? Fitzgerald. Justin Fitzpatrick, who's a former Ireland prop, who's currently been coaching at. He's in the U.S. setup as I think the forwards coach, and he's been coaching also at Seattle for the past several years.
Okay.
So if they go kind of hire more or less internally, I can see someone like him.
Haven't Seattle? I mean, we don't know 100%, but haven't Seattle kind of been ignored for this this new pro rugby club thing? They've not got a team yet. I know we don't need to talk about that yet, but if that means that it would be easier, because rather than have him coach a team that's not in the pro, he'd move on to the national side. Wouldn't that make sense?
Perhaps, but I think part of the thing about Seattle is just there isn't a stadium that's kind of the proper size for this league in Seattle that I know of.
Okay. Oh, see, we didn't know that.
I think that's a lot of like that seems to be kind of the big criteria they're using is who actually has the correct sort of stadiums, because they can't do what the MLS did. I mean, obviously we're getting ahead of ourselves in terms of the timeline of the podcast, but they aren't going to do what the MLS did for the first few years and put teams in NFL stadiums like.
Yeah, it's not enough.
So what did they do with the MLS?
So a lot of teams would have been playing in NFL stadiums that were 20% full, or in college stadiums, like.
Yeah, because college football's quite big, isn't it? I suppose. Well, quite big. It's very big.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can imagine the stadiums are pretty big as well. So yeah, so that wouldn't be an option because obviously soccer has already got that stamp on it. We're going to call it soccer and football and rugby because this has apparently become an American podcast. But yeah,
they call it soccer in Ireland.
Right.
So
they do call it soccer in
I've got
Ireland.
a question for Ian.
Go on.
Yeah.
So you said that you want, I mean, not that you want, but they might go for someone more or less internal. What about Mike Friday, who's got the sevens?
I think they'll stick with Friday at least. Friday will stick with the sevens at least until Rio. Like, that's the whole Rio, because the Olympics are such a big deal for American rugby that I don't think, like, and they want to keep that train kind of going in one direction.
I'd agree with that idea because I'm feeling that as well for it, because if nothing else, their sevens team could do quite well. I mean, they beat England in Twickenham, didn't they? I can't remember.
Well, they won first.
Yeah, they won in Twickenham.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, I know sevens is their priority right now, especially because of the Olympics. I mean, you want to beat Russia at something. And that's why.
Well, can they not beat them at hockey? Is that still not happening?
I don't know. I didn't mean this.
You went like a Cold War battle.
Yeah, that's not what I meant.
So I've got a picture of Mike Friday up now.
And no, I forgot what I meant. That's thank you. Yeah, no, what I mean is that obviously he's gonna go to Rio. But what's going to be interesting is afterwards, if they do want him for the 15 side, then they're gonna have to ask themselves the question: which, if he's going to be choice number one, then which is more important to them? Is it the 15s or is it the sevens? And that's if they do put him ahead, at the head of the 15s rugby, then you know that they want to develop it.
I think. Well, go on, Ian.
I just like the thing is he just hasn't really shown he does 15s at all. Like, I think the highest job he ever had, like recently as a 15 coach, was with London Scottish. He was with England for England sevens, Kenya sevens, USA sevens, but hasn't really coached 15s all that much.
Be more of a specialist coach than a 15s coach.
I think you can be a good rugby coach, but as long as he has a good, I think the thing that's key about Mike Friday is he seems to be a leader of people that the players respect at the very least.
And I think he also has a very good team around him. Chris Brown, Adam Magleby? No, wait, Alex Magleby.
Okay.
So he has so if he's off doing something, you have Chris Brown handling the team, and then Magleby off kind of handling recruitment, talent scouting. And I think that was something that kind of hurt previous kind of foreign coaches in America. Like we had Eddie O'Sullivan for a while, we had Scott Johnson, and just the fact that you have to go so far and wide behind the good talent. I think it's too big of a job for one coach.
All right. No,
and so I think now the support structures are there to a greater extent than they were even 5 years ago. So I think a foreign coach, like a club coach who's looking for a job, might have a better time of it than previous foreign coaches.
Fair enough. So something that's happened after the World Cup is obviously has been player movement, and players like Samu Manoa have gone to Toulon. But the biggest like move for me was AJ McGinty going to Connacht. Quite a lot of so you get like for Canada you've got like Hirayama, he plays sevens mainly, they're 10, but like quite a lot of the tier 2 countries don't have the same quality in the back line. They don't have players playing at a high level. Like Georgia have a lot of props and second rows and back rows playing in the higher levels. This is probably something that's I think will be very good for USA Rugby on the whole, having him playing for Connacht, and he's been starting as well, even though he's only been there a short time. But I think having someone at 10 playing at a high level will only be good for America.
No, I really agree with that. I think that I mean, I was shouting for London Irish in the Aviva Premiership to pick him up. Actually, I wanted to come to the Premiership and play, but I think Connacht at the top of their game at the moment and leading the way in the Pro 12 have actually a perfect stop for him, and he's getting game time and he's winning games. I actually think
he got a lovely all expenses paid trip to Siberia.
Yeah, correct.
At minus 20 or whatever they were playing at. It was it was cold, but I think it'll be interesting because I think Samu Manoa came over and he started winning games, so you get a winning mentality within the team. So I think and Van der Merwe for Canada, he got a winning mentality. So when you see a winning mentality within a rugby team, it's actually quite interesting to see those players just keep on stepping up. So I think it'll only do McGinty. I think it'll only be a positive step for him for sure.
The thing as well with American players is they all seem, the ones playing at like the top level all seem really versatile. Like you've got Manoa, he can play second row and back row. You've got Wiles, Scully that can play most of the back row, back line even. It's kind of weird how they're a lot more versatile than, I don't know, the standard play you get at these sorts of levels.
Yeah, I mean, does that come from... this is the problem that we were talking about just before the podcast started, where we've got 14-year-olds on Reddit coming up and asking us what position should we play. Now, I think for a child to be specialising in a position early is actually becoming the downfall of some of our club players in England, because you've got really tall people just playing second row, whereas then they might not grow anymore and actually be a really tall person. They might be 6 foot at 12 and then not grow anymore or something stupid, and that will mess you up because you're no longer a second row, you're actually a number 8 or you're actually somewhere else, but you've never played there before. So I think for the USA, they get fit and they get strong, and then eventually the coaches kind of put them in positions, and that's kind of what you want. You want them to have the ball skills, and then the coach decides where they go, rather than this idea that you assign yourself a position. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, and then basically, the way I've always experienced it in American rugby is like if you show up for the first time, like the coach, unless you're particularly look like, say, a front row or a second row, you'll more or less go at winger flanker.
Yeah, because that's the safe position.
Yeah.
No, I can see that.
Well, I'm sure that's the same in every country.
Kind of true, but you get, unless you're, unless you are the size of a prop. But if you've never played prop before, they have to put you at 6 until you've learned how to play prop. But it's certainly, I don't know. I get the feeling that most people get exposed to rugby at a younger age, maybe at school, and so they get their position assigned to them by a random PE teacher, and that's all they ever do. And I think that can be a big mistake.
I mean, this is off the USA topic, but how old, each of you, would you say you start telling kids that they're a forward or a back? Not even positions, just forward, back.
Well, that was that was the problem that I came up with. I mean, I don't know the age, but can't remember. It must have been 10 till about 13. We had a player who was a really good ball stealer. He'd go into the middle of a mall and he'd steal the ball and he'd come out the other side. And he was a really good tackler and a really good over the ball player, but he was tiny. He was absolutely tiny. And our coach at the time, he wanted to play him at 6 because he's a ball stealer and he's not going to be a good running 12. So he's a ball stealer, put him in at 6, but he's tiny. And at school, he was put at 12, and he was in the C team or something because he wasn't a running 12. But you put him at 6. That's 10 to 13, the years wise. So I mean, that's under 10s to under 14s. So we put him in the forwards, even though he was, because that's his specialist skill, not his size. His size and his weight was nothing to do with that.
So at 10 or 11-year-old, you had forwards and backs and positions. You basically had 15 aside. Is that what you're saying?
There's 12 aside. There's scrums. I can't remember now, actually. This is something that's actually quite interesting. There's scrums from quite a young age, actually. I think under 10s have scrums.
Yeah. I mean, they do now.
Yeah.
I know the rules now from the RFU, but I don't know the old ones because you're very old.
I can't remember.
And,
I know that we wanted him at 6, and there was the transition period where his dad, I remember his dad especially because he was small, saying, I don't want him at 6, he's a back. And the coach going, well, he's not a back because that's not what he's good at. He's good at being a forward. So, I don't know.
Right, let's bring it back to
rugby.
Yeah. So, the national team, they've been included in an America's Six Nations, which is starting up next February. That'll be a long time alongside the same, like as the Six Nations we have. It'll have Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Canada, and USA in it. It's kind of finally getting into a tournament where they can play consistently year in, year out. Hopefully it takes off, but what are your opinions on it, Ian?
Well, I think it's
what
good.
about the... Yeah, go on.
I think it's good just
sorry, go on.
more game time together as a unit, as a team, though I doubt any of the overseas pros are going to be involved for any of the teams. I could probably Argentina's Super Rugby team, any of the guys who are on that team won't be involved. It'll, for the US, Argentina, and Canada, it will be very much developmental sides, not all that different from what we already have in the ARC in the fall.
Right.
But I think what's really going to help is teams. I think, like the South American sides, they get stomped by Argentina every year because there's still the South American Championship.
Yeah.
So, like, not sure really what it's going to bring that already doesn't exist already. Just more game time and being able.
I think more game time will help. It always
in
does.
Canada. Yeah, and there's like more exposure to kind of guys who might not be in the center of people's radars, especially I think especially with the new pro league starting up. I think it'll be good for identifying guys for that.
Okay, yeah.
I
can see that.
Clearly, playing Argentina is going to help. Playing Canada some more is always going to help.
Mm-hmm.
Chile, Brazil, you're going to be way above them, but it's still international games, so that can't be bad.
More caps, more experience as a team.
And Uruguay, yeah, they're below you, but they'll be underdogs against the US, but they'll still fight.
They're a strong team still.
So yeah. So it won't be uninteresting for the US to play Uruguay at all. But what I'm wondering is why is the Pacific Nations Cup not annual?
It is. It's just the formatting is. It's always weird because like they have to squeeze it in such a tight time frame. They don't have like they haven't been as many resources devoted to the Pacific Nations Cup as there should have been to really make it work. Because, like, playing, because you have it scattered from Canada to Japan to Fiji. It's a huge amount of ground to cover in not a very large amount of time. So
yeah, definitely.
It seems like a good idea on paper.
I think I enjoy the Pacific Nations Cup, to be honest.
Exactly, yeah. You want to play against Japan. You want to play against Fiji. That's how you're going to improve so much by playing Fiji and Samoa all the time. I mean, you're going to get injured as well, but you'll improve.
And they'll I mean, their ball handling skills and the way they play rugby is something to be encouraged as well, and that's something that I think that Argentina are going to teach a lot of the home nations. I commented as a joke on Reddit just now, but I think that's actually going to help. Having Argentina and New Zealand and Australia playing the home nations is going to help us. So I think that Samoa and Fiji are going to help America, and I think that Argentina will help America as well.
I'm very confused by what you mean by home nations now.
Well, for me, home nations are England, Scotland, Wales.
Yeah, but we're talking about the US, so I don't.
I know, but they're playing the exciting rugby in the same way. I can't remember when it's scheduled for November 2016, I think. And And the same way that I think, I think that will be beneficial for us. I think the USA playing against exciting rugby in Fiji and Samoa will be helpful for them. I think that brand of rugby 100%. Should be spread.
The one thing it's not helping with us, of course, is our scrums are still shit.
Yeah,
after the watershed.
Well, you don't have any props.
No, you can swear.
We have one. We have one prop.
It's just that is a problem. It's very you need two. You need one on either side, and then you just need a little guy in the middle to try and get the ball back.
They've got is it the guy at Saracens you're talking about?
Yeah, Lama Satelli.
Yeah, is he 20 years old or something? And he's been pretty young, but he's like.
What are your thoughts on getting probably English players to fill in those? I'm thinking of Corby Sierra. Obviously, he's good enough to play for, or was good enough to play for England, and he's half American, isn't he? So I'm sure you've got more. There's a few more professional players somewhere in England that can be qualified for the US.
There's a few, not in England, but there's one, Dave Ryan, who used to play for Ulster and has now moved down to Agen. So there's
Dave Ryan rugby.
Possibly that now that he's not kind of tied to one of those. Now that he's in France, where they have looser rules, he might take the chance to play for the US.
And McGinty as well.
I don't know if they do. They have looser rules in France?
Well, basically, like if you play in Ireland and you're not already a cap international.
Oh, okay.
If you like go and play for the US, a pro.
You become a marquee player.
You're most likely to lose your contract. Yeah, and they're not going to have one of those, like a journeyman prop, when they could have Nick Williams.
Yeah. All right. No, that makes sense. For Irish rugby, that makes sense because they don't want their clubs getting messed around. If they buy an international player, they want them to play. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, guys, I'm just getting. In fact, I know I'm not even going to bring it up because that will put a dampener on everything. So the next thing, we can talk about.
Just tell us.
Go on.
Tell us what you're going to say.
Oh no, it's just the thing on Reddit. There's a live thread just gone up on Reddit, but I don't want to talk about it.
Should we talk about the Pro League?
Yeah, let's talk about the Pro League and the attempts beforehand. So,
right.
Do you know what failed beforehand, Ian? Do you have an inkling or?
So, well, kind of the big one was the NRFL.
Yeah.
Which did nearly everything it could have done wrong. Everything it could have done wrong, it did wrong. Like basically they just went off like Lone Ranger, and they decided to ignore the rugby fan base in the U.S., concentrate solely on NFL cast-offs. They didn't. Their PR was terrible. Their guy who was running it he was just not a nice person.
How do you mess the PR up that badly? Because it doesn't seem that difficult to go, I've got this brand new sport, it's rugby, it's got physical contact, it's got all of these elements, and you guys love this sort of thing. How do you mess that PR up so badly that it just fails? Like, I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
I think he went in with the assumption that it was just like a license to print money, which, as many people realize, it's not. And also, he kind of thought this whole line that like even the worst, like anybody who could like make it in the NFL would completely destroy anyone in rugby, and so like he just really had no.
Was that his mentality? Was it quite?
Yeah.
He was quite pro the American football converts.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
and, yeah.
I can see. So I can see there being a good transition maybe in the initial creation, but I think that rugby has to make its own grassroots, and I think that, like you said, that's not the right route to go down.
And ultimately, the league didn't get the approval of USA Rugby, and thus
and so it failed.
Have any matches?
Okay,
like,
that's just That's a broken system right there.
And they had that owner that his Facebook messages got leaked, and he goes on a big rant basically and starts calling him an idiot and a commie and stuff, and it all
really
spirals out of control. Yeah, it's it's just a bit of a mess basically. So, right, I'll just go through the new Pro League that's going to be set up. Just go through with some facts. So it's meant to start on the April 2016. It's going to have 6 teams in it.
Okay.
And it's going to employ mostly USA qualified players. There's going to be a cap of 5 foreign players per team.
Yep.
The teams are going to be drawn from, quote, major metropolitan areas in the Northeast, the Rocky Mountains, and California. As of recording, there's 2 teams that have been done. They're both from California. You've got San Francisco and Sacramento. There's been rumors that Denver, Philadelphia, and New York are going to be options, but I think the stadiums are the main issue. Trying to find a stadium that's cost effective and not too big. So after the first year, in 2017, they're inviting Canadian teams to join. I think Canada was asked to start with, but I think they didn't have enough time to get teams organised. I think Vancouver was one of the main ones that they wanted to get a team in.
Okay. I think Vancouver would be good, but are you sure they're not gonna, like, Toronto? To me is rugby. There's a lot of rugby.
They could have a couple of teams. It's not just
yeah. Toronto and Vancouver would be the big 2 in Canada.
And it's also going to be, so the way we have clubs in like Europe is the club is owned and they do everything. They employ their players and things, but this is going to be similar to soccer ball with the MLS. So Pro Rugby, the company, will centrally contract and own and manage all the teams, and it sets the quotas and things like that. It owns the entire league basically. So all the players that play in the league are employed by Pro Rugby, not by Sacramento or San Francisco.
Well, that's the that's kind of the Irish way of doing things.
Yeah, so he's centrally contracted basically.
Yeah. So I was actually talking to my friend about this. It's not so much the Irish system, because USA Rugby isn't particularly involved. I think the closest it would be is more the Welsh, with kind of you have regional rugby, which operates the teams, and then you have the Welsh Rugby Union as a kind of a separate thing that governs it.
They kind of centrally contract the problem with the Welsh Rugby Union. I mean, that's a whole different thing altogether. But they previously, I mean, they're okay-ish now, but previously they've been quite slow to give out central contracts and actually keep players. But I think they've realised that they were losing a lot of talent, and they've started actually giving them out. So I think as long as America does put their money where their mouth is and keep. So, for example, if you get one team, like Sacramento, for example, if Sacramento suddenly destroy everybody else in that league, and they have one or two really star players that were unknowns, you definitely need to be keeping them in that USA Pro League.
Yeah, that's what they would. That's what they would be doing. The office, I think, is in New York, and they'd all be. I think the reason they're doing it is it's called like a single entity structure. It allows teams to not bid for each other's players as well, and so it's not.
Really?
Yeah. So they're all because they're all contracted, and they
That's not
can't.
capitalist. That's
American sports are a gateway to socialism.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Well, I think
there's
that's
a lot
the
of.
best way to start with. I think they don't want to they can easily change this. Like the MLS has stepped up. I think the
I
MLS
thought you were making a political statement there. For a
No,
second.
no,
I was
no.
like, that's the best way to start America to socialism.
No, it's like American sports are generally way more kind of collectivist than European sports. Like you look at the NFL with like revenue sharing and draft and all that.
Well, the draft is always interesting because I still, I mean, I do understand it, but it's still completely baffling to me that if you came bottom or whatever, you then get first pick or something. It's it's a very even-handed way of doing things in a country that prides itself on not necessarily being like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a quite.
I mean,
Don't
there's also
ever tell
just
them that. It might ruin their entire lives.
But it makes for a crazy competition year in year out because you might get a rubbish player.
Yeah,
Anyway.
No, it's actually quite a good system, and I'm wondering, and this question for Ian again, on the NFL, I'm thinking of sponsorship contracts. You know, they were with Reebok, and now they're with Nike, and literally the entire 36 teams have the same sponsor.
Yeah.
You know, have the same equipment.
The MLS.
Do you think that's going to be the same for pro rugby?
Wait, everyone has the same sponsor in the NFL?
No, I don't mean sponsor. I mean the kit. They're all Nike
Same
because
with
it's a central contract with the NFL.
That seems bizarre. Okay.
the MLS has the same as well, where it's like all Adidas does the kits for the whole league.
But what happens if a South American player sponsored by Puma or something comes and plays? Are they not allowed to wear a Puma
Just their
boot?
boots. No, they wear their own boots, just
Okay.
like in football and in rugby right now.
It's just
You get your own boots, but
It's just the kit. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they don't control it that much. Because I was just thinking they used to fine people for example, Marler shaving his head and putting an advert in there and wearing a different gum shield or whatever with advertising on. People get fined for that sort of nonsense.
That
So
would be
Because
like
you're
that,
not
I
allowed
think.
personal advertising, but you're allowed to wear boots that with the Puma logo on them.
yeah, okay, all right.
All right, so going back to the Pro League, like this sounds good, but do you think it'll actually take off, or will it be like the many attempts that's happened before it? Do you think, Ian?
I mean, I don't think there actually have been that many attempts. It's not like, I mean, if you compare it to women's
He's calling you out, Adam.
there's been, as long as I've been paying attention, there's just been like the NRLFL has really been the only thing that's kind of sprung up and tried.
Right, but you're miles in terms of like World Rugby, you're miles behind other leagues. Like Japan had their Pro League in 2003, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
Like there are other. I'm not saying it was like
I mean,
today, but like
He called you out, and now you're just like, well, fuck off. You're shit.
I think I don't know how
Fight.
Japan, why all these companies in Japan just decided rugby was something they're going to pump money into. But
It's been going on for years. That they've been doing that for like
yeah,
40s and 50s, I think.
the Japanese system is. But you have to keep in mind that it's actually not entirely pro. Like you'll have kind of like the big, like the foreign players
Yeah,
in and like making bank, but then like a lot of the squad guys they'll be employees of the whatever company sponsors
so
the
they
team.
get the life.
Yeah, that's true in second division, but not in first division. They're all pros
Even though not all of them.
at the moment.
But
Yeah, I think I'm not entirely sure, but I think yeah. But yeah, like Ian said, they're all officially employees, which is really interesting. Like so, for example, Nick Cummins, Honey Badger, is playing for Coca-Cola, and he is in Japan an employee of Coca-Cola.
You can put that on his CV.
All in.
So,
I feel like I should say another brand now.
Yeah, go on.
do you think this will take off?
Other brands are available. Sponsored by Pepsi.
Do you think this league will take off, or do you think it'll?
I mean,
Yes.
like we can have professional ultimate frisbee in America. I think.
Okay, that's fine.
I think it's
You've
about
messed
time
up.
for a rugby league.
If you've got professional ultimate frisbee, there's something going wrong.
My old roommate actually plays for a
He's-
professional ultimate frisbee team.
Fred, I'm losing you.
What do you mean you're losing me?
Oh, you're getting all fuzzy. That's interesting.
Well, that must be the beer.
It's gone straight to your head. It says 2 people are watching on the stream, so that's great.
Yeah, one of them is me.
Isn't that great fun?
And
Well,
what's the other?
Omnipotent Sloth was watching, but it says disappointing when it says it's live, but it's not. So we might have not been live. Who knows? Who knows?
We are live. I'm watching.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
It's-
probably
it's
what's
now-
doing the
That's why
stream.
you're all fuzzy.
Sam.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no. It's no longer live.
Well, of course we're no longer live because you're watching. Your internet is. I don't know. Are we no longer live? Oh, it says it's live
I'm
on mine.
gonna try again. 'Cause I can hear you guys fine. Like there's absolutely no problem.
Okay. Anyway,
Alright.
we need to actually talk about some more rugby things.
Right.
So let's talk about.
Of
Well, we
what?
talked about grassroots. All right. Let's talk about London Irish and Saracens in New York. Then let's skip over everything else and immediately talk about Irish playing Saracens in New York.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's just before St. Patrick's Day, isn't it? I think they're
now.
clearly targeting the
I'm gonna-
Irishness.
Yeah, and I'm that's true actually, but they're going to lose, so that's not actually going to be that great. What I'm going to bring up now is the fact that Ian has previously said that he can't get into the Aviva Premiership, right? Is that true?
No, we're not talking about Exeter Chiefs.
No, we're not. So
Hear him out.
So you've previously not been able to get into the Premierships. Now, do you think that London Irish and Saracens in New York is going to attract enough people? Well, not enough people, because I bet they'll fill the stadium. But do you think it'll actually inspire people to want to follow a league that's in a different country? Is that actually going to happen?
I think at this point in America, it's just so incredibly difficult to find like international leagues on TV. Like,
Okay.
I think that the last time I checked, you had to get your normal cable package plus an extra package on top of that, and that package wasn't even available in half the country.
Okay, yeah. So that's limiting as it is already.
Yeah. Like there was a while where ESPN had the French league, had the top 14 on, and you could just watch it on ESPN3.
Well, that's quite a good thing.
That was convenient, but then ESPN didn't buy the right. Well, they lost the rights, and
Are
so
you
now
serious?
that was a few years ago.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
I remember that actually.
but is it going to generate a huge amount of interest in New York? That's the thing. So obviously St. Patrick's Day is a big thing. It's London Irish going over there, so it should, right? There's going to be a lot of green things going on.
Is
I
it going
think
to
if
be
they
on
push
St.
it-
Patrick's Day or the day before?
No, it's before it.
It's before it, but it's the
Yeah,
build
okay.
up.
So there's actually a chance people might watch.
Yeah. Otherwise, they'll all be at the parade. Or what actually happens
Yeah,
on St. Patrick's
exactly.
Day? Is it a parade?
There's a parade. There's lots of drinking.
So this is something that I've brought up before, but America celebrate it harder than Ireland do, and not only that, but I don't understand why. The connection between the two it exists, but it only exists in specific parts of the country.
Because they
New
like
York's one of
holidays
those
and they like
parts.
drinking. Like, there's nothing wrong about that.
We should celebrate the French Revolution in UK because I like holidays and I like drinking.
We should.
So we should celebrate that. I've decided.
Bastille Day.
Bastille Day. Yeah, we just play Bastille over and over and repeat.
Um,
I'm trying to think of other songs now. Fred, have you got anything interesting you want to bring up?
Well, if you put it like this, obviously not.
right.
Just give me some sort of topic of conversation before you drop that on me.
Well, do you want to go back to talking about that age group that we were talking about?
Oh, definitely.
And positions.
But
because,
that would take an hour or two.
Let's talk about, I don't know, let's go with sevens. So we talked about it a bit earlier. They had the most successful season last season.
Yep.
and they smashed it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're going in. They won their first title as well at the end. Obviously, it's kind of building up to the Olympics this year, and that puts it on a global scale, and it'll be a worldwide audience watching the American team, and it'll obviously get a bit more coverage with American viewers who probably wouldn't watch it normally. Do you think that that's detrimental to the growth of 15s in America, having
I don't
sevens more
think
popular?
so. From my personal experience, so my family are soccer people, and
Okay.
I tried to get sevens is what allowed what got them to become rugby fans. So at the last World Cup, they watched the final without even me telling them when it was on. So now they are will actually go out of their way to watch a rugby game, because I was able to show them sevens where there's not so many bodies piled everywhere, so you can actually tell why the ref is making a particular call or something.
Yeah. So it's sort of the gate.
Easier.
So
Yeah,
I think it's
easier
the
to get into.
rules. I think it's the rules.
Sort of a gateway drug.
It's a
Yeah,
gateway
that's
drug.
what I was thinking.
That exactly.
But this question got brought up when I asked for questions of Americans because they were asking, is there such thing as touch rugby like there is touch football? Now, there is. It's hard. It might be a little bit harder to set up, but I think that that's a really good way of learning the rules. The only way that I can think of is just to go out in the park and mess around, and you kind of learn the rules because there'll be that one guy that knows all the rules, and he's constantly berating the others for getting it wrong. So I think once that's established and there's actually people like one or two that know the rules, it starts to spread almost organically, and I think that's the way that rugby will grow in America.
Yeah, just play
Yeah,
tag rugby.
there's
It's a good
also
way of-
in some states they're doing under 8s tag rugby starting in schools too, which is cool.
But that's really cool. I'm very pro tag rugby, and touch rugby, especially for quite a long time. I know Australia do they do it up to under 14s? I don't know.
I don't know.
They do it for a lot. They do it for a lot longer than the UK does. England, Wales, and Scotland. We introduced tackling and stuff at under 9s, under 10s. So you've got small kids just smashing into each other.
Yeah. In clubs, yeah. But then when you're adults,
school.
there's tag competitions, and there's especially in England now with it's a bit of advertising again, but the O2 Touch things that are being set up by the IFU are really good.
Sponsored by Vodafone.
Yeah,
But
and T-Mobile.
and are they part of EE now? I don't know. Anyway, advertising
No, it's
for
Virgin
mobile.
Media.
Oh, okay. Right, there we go. Good advertising. So yeah, I mean, there's plenty of little touch things that go on, and I mean, even they get them all down to Twickenham, and they have a little touch game before the games, don't they? And it's a nice day out for everyone. So I think touch rugby in America, if that can take off as much as Sevens has, like just casually playing it yourselves, I think that would be useful. But obviously that requires people knowing some of the rules. That's going to take a while.
That's going to be one of my other questions as well, just for grassroots. Is where sort of in America is rugby most popular? Is it sort of like New York area and California, or?
I'm not
Scattered
really
everywhere?
sure I'm not entirely sure what's going on the East Coast because I've never played out there. But like where I was playing in Oregon, like it's apparently the fastest growing, it's the fastest growing youth rugby system in the country. So when I started playing, there was one team in my hometown of 200,000 people, and recently there were 4. So it's grown significantly, and there's teams all over. And then also get the Mountain West will be a lot of teams, so Colorado and Utah.
Right.
Thanks to the Mormon Church, Utah has a large number of Pacific Islanders. So
That's it?
they always, yeah.
There's that university called BYU in Utah, and I think it's a dry campus as well.
Yeah,
And,
Really?
and they're one of the best rugby teams in the country, aren't they?
Mother of
Yeah.
God.
they won the 15s for the past 3 years, I think. But they don't compete in the 7s because that wouldn't require them playing on a Sunday.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I don't want
You're
to
going to
get.
get that in America.
I don't want to be advertising for alcohol, but I totally am. And yeah, I mean, I understand not drinking on a personal level, but
i.e. he doesn't want
having
it
an
to-
entire rugby culture without it just seems mad.
Well, no, see, this is where I got chastised, I think, by a couple of American Redditors, because there's apparently a big drinking problem in club rugby in America where people just use it as an excuse, whereas I think especially in England, it's quite insular. So you go to the rugby club, you drink, you do some stupid stuff, and then you go out on the town a little bit, but you don't really wreck everything.
You were going to do it without the rugby anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people
mean-
looking for an excuse, and it gives off a bad vibe, and it puts people off wanting to go and try out rugby or play rugby.
Yeah.
Like at a grassroots level, and
that's
like
interesting.
a high school and university level, then it can potentially put people off.
Yeah. And you
And
wanna-
surely must make it difficult for university students, for example, because legally for the first 3 years they can't
You
drink.
can't drink, which
Yeah.
is so broken in America. But I mean, we can't talk about that so much because that's just a political thing. But I don't get that.
I don't know. Like if you're going to be
Sex at 18, war at 18, drinking 21. Okay,
What sex at 18?
is it sex at 18 in America?
No, it's sex after
I think
marriage.
that
So
varies.
40.
right.
Right.
I'm so sorry about that.
I like that. That was good.
But
I
like
can't take you anywhere.
you have like so American football you can actually get a career out of. So people are probably going to take it a bit more seriously at university level or college level. Rugby's not really something I think most Americans think they're going to make a career out of.
Yeah.
Which will
I mean,
hopefully
So
change.
it's kind of a fun sport you play, and there's drinking involved. So you've got to.
We
It's
just
getting
have to-
more and more serious. So there'll be more clubs that won't be like definitely like the top tier colleges won't be getting pissed after every game. But I mean, the team I played for in college was, as one of the French exchange students said, we were a terrible rugby team, terrible rugby, great rugby team.
Sounds like my kind of team.
Exactly. Sounds like my life.
Good social rugby.
Um,
I do love a good bit of social
but I
rugby.
suppose having a pro team and people that can actually make a career out of it might, I don't know, might have a positive effect.
It's going to have a
Yeah,
huge
certainly.
positive effect as long as you see it on ESPN and as long as you see it on these big channels in America. As soon as, like you said earlier, if when it dropped off ESPN and they didn't rebuy the rights, and that'll have a massive knock-on effect and a big negative
Hmm.
because people just don't see it anymore. And if you're not exposed to it, it doesn't happen. Look at UFC. Suddenly, for some reason, I'm seeing a lot of UFC on Reddit. Be that Ronda
Yeah.
Rousey or be that one of the random other MMA fighter, well, the other fighters. It's, I don't know. I'm seeing a lot more of it, and I'm assuming that's because it's getting broadcasted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like that's what's going to be cool about the pro rugby is that it's going to be all online. So like there's for the first few years they're not going to just kind of sell the rights to some broadcaster who just like
Put it on the X channel and no one will watch
yeah
it. Yeah. So they're going to put it all online.
yeah
See, I think the Aviva Prem's done quite well in that respect because all the highlights are on YouTube. Even some of the full matches are online.
all the full matches are online.
Yeah,
on
and it's
their
getting
website.
it's getting to the point where the Aviva Premiership is actually really accessible now, and they've somehow managed to retain it, even though the broadcasting live is between Sky and BT. They've managed to maintain it, so they've always got their highlights, and they're retaining the rights to some of the recordings. So it's actually really good for accessibility. So I think USA Rugby, in the same regard, keeping it online and keeping the rights to their own recordings is actually a really good idea. I
Yeah.
think that'll go a long way to promoting the game. Anyway, I'm going to start the outro music. If you want to talk about anything in particular, just go crazy.
I was going to do the Reddit questions first, just before the outro.
Do the Reddit questions. The outro music's playing.
yeah.
Okay, so we've got a question from DRBCD. He's asking, what are your predictions for your game against Portugal in the sevens?
I think like if we manage to keep our form, we should beat Portugal. Thinking 30-14.
Go for that. And the other question was, somebody's asking if you played at, was it J2/4 in Dublin? And
Yes.
then sort of what's the equivalent level in America?
So, I was playing J4s in Dublin, which is approximately the 12th level on the Irish Rugby Pyramid.
Okay.
I was playing Division 3 in America, which is the 4th level. But you just get a much wider range of talent on American teams. Like I would have played in America, I would have played with some guys who probably could have been J1 level,
Okay.
but played in. So yeah, it's a much bigger range because you just don't have as many teams to choose from. I
Right.
saw another question is where on the AIL teams, how they do. There's actually a good example of that because there was number 8 from UCD from their first team, Owen Joyce, went over to play for Old Mission Beach, which is in San Diego, and like he was pretty good for UCD, but he was really when he went over to San Diego, he stepped up and became like one of their most important players for the season he was with them. So like I think generally the AIL standard would be higher than you get in like the top level of American club rugby. So
Fair
a
enough.
team like UCD, Lansdowne, Clontarf would be expected to win the league.
I'm loving this specific USA stuff because we just don't have any of this knowledge whatsoever. I just don't know
Always
anything
helps.
about it.
Yeah.
There we
we
go.
do have
Also
one
there.
last question.
Yeah, from a French fan there on Reddit.
From a French fan, is it?
Yeah,
Oh, he must be a bit of a cock.
probably a very loose one at least.
A loose cock. Would you say? Yeah, go on.
So I thought Adam
what's the
was
question?
reading the question.
Okay,
Right.
so who's the best American player ever, and why is it Nguyen?
I'm completely baffled that you didn't say Carlin Isles. I'll be honest with you. I was expecting it. I read halfway
I
I was
through.
going for
Because-
Barry Baker, but
I think because
probably
he's
would've.
he's a Biarritz fan. I think that's why.
yeah, that's exactly
I
why.
think that's it, isn't it?
Just plugging in my team there wherever I can.
Pow! No, so
Yeah,
I've just put
there aren't
Fred's
any
picture
Americans
up on the live stream. So, this is a
God.
great
That's a
shot.
good note to end on, is it? Should we end there?
Oh, wait, I'm not listening. Oh
no,
yeah.
no,
okay.
we have
Talk
one last.
about-
Is Harble a good drunk? That's the big question. Is he a happy drunk,
He
or is he more of a depressive one?
he just talks more
Or is
than
he just
he would
drunk?
normally.
He talks more normally. Does he lose the
No.
accent?
No, talk.
No, he talks more when he's drunk.
Oh,
And
okay.
then when he and
How is
Reddit
that
just get
possible?
together, it's just like a feedback loop, kind of like spiraling into the black hole of I don't remember what happens after that.
But he talks so much when he's sober.
I don't think
Right.
he's ever sober.
And, oh yeah, that's true. He's got a 0.5 alcohol base level or whatever. Oh dear.
Yeah, that's why he doesn't have a driving license.
Does he not? Oh,
Just
big
cannot
reveal.
get on. No.
The big
I'm
reveal.
I'm just kidding. I'm just saying he can't get under the limit.
Right, should we leave
Oh,
there?
no
That's,
legalities.
should we close off?
Yeah. Yeah,
Alright.
end on the failed joke. That's always a good one.
Yeah.
End on a high.
Fucking idiots. Yeah, the
Alright.
outro music is just playing still, so I'll just turn it up. Right, talk over it.
No.
Fucking. Right, I'm gonna mute you. Do 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 do.